Hey, Focus Learners, welcome back to The Explainer. So today, we're taking the concept of the cloud entirely literally. We're talking about moving heavy-duty computing straight up into orbit. We're going to dig into the actual physical engineering realities behind what sounds like a massive sci-fi concept, building AI data centers in space. It sounds wild, I know, but as you'll see, the blueprint is literally already being drawn up right now. So let's jump right in. Here is our agenda for today. 1. The cloud in orbit. 2. The power and cooling problem. 3. Anatomy of an AI satellite. 4. Laser links and latency. 5. Scaling to a terawatt. And 6. Launching from the moon. All right, section 1. The cloud in orbit. Now, when you hear the phrase data center, you're probably picturing a gigantic, sprawling, windowless warehouse on the ground, right? Aisles and aisles of blinking server racks, massive air conditioning units pumping away, and a direct, heavy line to the local power grid. So how in the world do you take all of that heavy infrastructure and turn it into something functional that just floats in the vacuum of space? Well, our source hit the nail on the head with this quote, like, we're not going to slap engines on a building and fly it up there. They are fundamentally completely different beasts. The physical chips themselves, the actual silicon doing the AI processing, they're tiny. Getting the computer chips into space, that's actually the easy part of the whole equation. Which brings us to section 2, the power and cooling problem. The real, absolutely crucial engineering challenge here is a massive thermodynamics problem. It really just boils down to 2 giant physical constraints of operating in space. First, you have to deliver immense power to run these hungry AI chips. Second, and honestly the trickier part, you have to take the immense waste heat generated by those chips and shed it. Remember, there is literally no air in space. You can't just blow a fan across a heatsink like the computer sitting on your desk. Heat management in a vacuum relies entirely on radiation. So how do they do it? Section 3, Anatomy of an AI satellite. Check out the raw specs of this proposed AI-1 satellite. It's fascinating. To generate the juice, the design uses solar arrays pulling in 250 watts per square meter to support those heavy AI workloads. But the cooling, that's where things get really extreme. They use these massive, double-sided radiators capable of shedding 1,400 watts per square meter. And to maximize efficiency, they orient these radiators knife-edge to the sun, so they minimize how much solar heat they absorb while blasting that waste heat out into deep space. And guys, these are not small. We're talking a 70-meter wingspan. That massive structure is literally the life support system required to keep those dense compute chips from just melting into slag in a vacuum. There's no magic trick here. It uses solar and radiator tech directly evolved from existing Starlink V3 satellites. And all of that massive, sprawling infrastructure exists just to hit this specific number, 120 kilowatts of sustained average compute power. To put that 120 kilowatts into perspective, that's roughly equivalent to ripping a top-tier terrestrial AI rack out of a building and dropping it straight into orbit. Think of an NVIDIA GB300 rack loaded up with 72 GPUs. Now, that rack might hit a peak power of 150 kilowatts on the ground, but its sustained everyday operating envelope is right around that 120 kilowatt mark. You are essentially taking existing industry-standard chips, like NVIDIA Rubin chips, GB300s, or TPUs, and plugging them right into this orbital chassis. I absolutely love this breakdown because it brilliantly illustrates the reality of orbital computing. Look at the mass. You've got this massive slice just for the solar array to gather power, another massive slice just for the radiators to dump the heat, and then this tiny, tiny little sliver for the actual compute chips. The computer itself is practically an afterthought when you look at the total size. The vast, vast majority of the satellite is just the power and cooling life support system needed to survive the harsh environment of space. Moving on to section 4, laser links and latency. Now, these satellites aren't just floating up there in isolation. The design calls for a staggering 1 terabit of laser link connectivity per satellite. This massive bandwidth is what allows these orbital compute racks to beam data to each other, literally at the speed of light. So let's trace the actual data journey. Step 1, your data gets crunched on the AI satellite rack. Step 2, it's beamed via that laser link straight over to the existing Starlink constellation. Step 3. Starlink uses its existing radio antennas to beam the data down to a ground station or a user terminal. And Step 4. Boom. It hits your end user device. Eventually, with direct assault tech, we could literally be looking at high-bandwidth AI processing beamed straight from a server in space right to the smartphone in your pocket. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about lag? Latency is usually the big boogeyman with space-based AirNet, but for this architecture, the delay is essentially a myth. These satellites would live in low Earth orbit, about 600 to 800 kilometers up. Since light travels at 300 kilometers per millisecond in a vacuum, the round trip is only about 3 milliseconds. That is practically non-existent. Like the source points out, light moves pretty fast.
All right, Section 5, scaling to a terawatt.
So to pull off the ultimate goals of this project, you need chips, a ridiculous amount of chips. The source outlines this proposed concept called the terafab. And this isn't just a big factory. We're talking a theoretical 100 million square foot facility. To put that completely massive scale into perspective, that's 10 times the size of Gigafactory Texas. This place would be designed to pump out a staggering 1 billion full reticle equivalent logic chips every single year. It's basically pushing the absolute physical size limits of advanced silicon manufacturing.
And here is the aspirational roadmap for actually deploying all that compute into space. It is incredibly aggressive. They want to hit an annualized rate of 1 gigawatt of space AI compute by the end of next year. Then scale it up by an order of magnitude every year after. So 10 gigawatts in 2.5 years, 100 gigawatts in 3.5 years. And the ultimate long-term goal? 1 terawatt of orbital compute. Just for context on how crazy that is, 1 terawatt is roughly twice the current electricity consumption of the entire United States, and they want to completely offload that into space.
Finally, Section 6, launching from the moon.
Okay, so to go 1,000 times beyond that terawatt threshold, we literally have to stop launching from Earth. The source outlines this incredible endgame where we actually shift manufacturing to the moon. Think back to that pie chart, right? Remember how the vast majority of the mass is just dedicated to heavy solar panels and huge radiators? Well, if you manufacture those heavy parts locally on the moon, you completely bypass Earth's massive gravity well. The moon only has 1/6 of Earth's gravity and 0 atmosphere. That means you don't even need rockets to launch these data centers into deep space. You could just shoot these completed AI satellites into orbit using an electromagnetic railgun or a mass driver. It's wild. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought. If we are seriously drafting real engineering blueprints right now to build autonomous, solar-powered data centers, launch them into orbit, and eventually manufacture them on the moon using mass drivers to capture a terawatt of the sun's energy, are we looking at the very first step toward humanity becoming a Kardashev Type 2 civilization? It is an absolutely incredible engineering roadmap, and it fundamentally changes how we have to think about the future of computing. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, Focus Learners. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.